This is one of a set of 16 watercolors that were produced for the Chicago World's Fair in 1893. That's also called the Columbian Exposition because it was scheduled for the 400th anniversary of Columbus's arrival in the New World. A World's Fair typically always had a theme of showcasing the latest and greatest and most exciting inventions, but there was also a real theme of sort of nationalism and heritage, especially for different countries, both in the New World and in the Old World. These watercolors came from Japan, and what they were doing in their pavilion is they had a display of many of their archaeological finds, which were an important part of showing their history as a nation and that they had been Japan and had a cohesive identity for a really long time. The watercolors were made because some of the artifacts were deemed to be too important to let travel outside of the country of Japan. And so the most beautiful and the most precious ones were replicated in watercolor to go on display instead of shipping the original objects.
So this one is untreated. It came to us, I think, just a couple weeks ago. But we had that initial batch of 6 that we treated, and when I was approaching those, I was much more cautious. I was doing more testing so that I could come up with a protocol that would apply for all of them. There were some things we found that we did not think would be very successful and were successful, and then there were other things that were the complete opposite. So that initial testing phase is over, and now this is more of a get right to the treatment and make it whole and happy again. And I think another step that kind of helps with legibility, maybe in a way that is a little counterintuitive, is actually reinforcing the really weakened pulpy areas. Because right now it's almost distracting just by the extent of deterioration. Like it's, at least maybe it's a conservator bias, but my brain immediately focuses on this whole edge. So one of the things that I had kind of come up with a procedure for with the last treatment was a way of reinforcing the area with similar toned papers so that it kind of recedes back visually and is more stable. And so I had to sandwich it because there's just no strength left in this area. And you would think that overlaying the paper would just reduce all of that visibility. But we were fortunate to have really lovely thin tissue that, I mean, I don't even know if it's registering on the camera, but when it's over the object, it adds that reinforcement, but you can still see the object through it. And then for the added stability, we have something a little thicker that goes on the back, and that also helps tone that edge. So once it's complete, you're seeing one fairly consistent tone of brown paper, and you can really focus on the gorgeous watercolors rather than the also fascinating and sometimes pretty degradation. The goal of the treatment is to make them safe to handle for researchers, for the poor archivist who's had to deal with these up until now, so that they can safely get it in and out of the housing, and then hopefully safe enough to put on display in the future if that's an interest.